Yes, good morning. The perfect marriage, and no, it is not a discussion of our marriage. But the perfect marriage is our talk today. And if we, as Rich said this morning, and as I've said each week, that during the month of January, it's our back to basics. It's our back to basics month where we, reground in our fundamental spiritual and science of mind tenets. So that's what we've done this month, and I think it's been fun so far.
Can I just say that word perfect, another loaded word?
Yes.
From my experience with students, like be perfect as your father, all that perfect stuff. Do you know what perfect means, the derivation of perfect?
What does perfect mean?
I'm so thrilled to find that because I could share it with my students.
Okay.
Perfect means whole.
Yes. Well, and I will get to that.
Oh,
I will get to that.
Great.
Okay. So we've started the year with God by taking a fresh and deeper look at what we talk about here every single Sunday, and which is encapsulated so beautifully in the words by Ernest Holmes in his book called The Art of Living, and it was formerly called this thing called life, so I'm not quite sure why they changed the name of it, but they did. So this is what Holmes says. He says, God is life, not some life, but all life. God is action, not some action, but all action. God is power, not some power, but all power. God is pure spirit, filling all space. This pure spirit animates our every act. There is a real you which lives in a real God, and the two are one. That was our first week's study in kind of a nutshell. There is a real you which lives in a real God, and the two are one. So we said, if we keep our minds stayed on these ideas, we will not only start the year with God, we will stay with God throughout all of 2016. And then, these last 2 weeks, we've engaged in grand experiments contained in Pam Grout's great book, which was E Squared, to prove ourselves that the law of God actually works in our lives, to strengthen our belief that these beautiful Science of Mind teachings really are true, and that they operate in our lives like our founder said. To quote Ernest Holmes again in The Science of Mind, and Suzanne shared this a couple weeks ago, I think, he says, we are thinking, willing, knowing, conscious centers of life, and that's life with a capital L. We are surrounded by, immersed in, and there's a flowing through us, a creative something. We call it law. The sum total of all our thoughts, will, purpose, and belief creates a tendency in this law that causes it to react to us. This is why Jesus summed up his whole philosophy in the simple statement, it is done unto you as you believe. Your grand experiments from last week were, who was here last week?
Yeah.
Okay.
The butter? Oh.
Well, no, that was one before. The butterfly was the week before. Okay, the last week was the Siri principle. If you have an iPhone, you know who Siri is. Opening up inner guidance on a specific issue. Okay, asking Siri, asking Spirit for guidance on a specific issue. And the second one was the abracadabra principle, setting your intention to experience, manifest something specific for yourself. So, for those of you who did this, does anyone have anything they'd like to share on doing one of those two things? The Siri principle, which is asking for inner guidance on a specific issue, or the abracadabra principle, setting your intention to experience or manifest something specific for yourself.
Well, I don't know if I actually honestly remembered that, but I did ask for help with my arm, and I said, I want to sleep, damn it. So, whoever, my angels, my spirit team, Archangel Raphael, be here now and take away this pain so I can sleep. And I slept soundly all night, but when I get up in the morning, of course I couldn't move my arm and it was a lot of pain. But it was very surprising, asking for help during the night, take care of this because I want to have a sound sleep. I don't hate having my sleep disrupted. I didn't have any pain at all during any night.
Oh, wonderful.
Which was a miracle to me, considering how much pain I was in during the day. You'd think moving it somehow during the night, you'd wake up with,
Sure, yeah.
oh my God.
Oh, what was that? What was that? Yeah.
But the powers that be, I believe, said, oh, absolutely, we're on it. and they took care of me during the night, yeah.
So you could rest and heal.
Heal.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I do believe it healed pretty quickly.
Mine's more of a story that goes along.
Make it short.
I'll make it short. Back in early October, I've always wanted a really nice looking leather bracelet.
Ooh, nice.
And so Chris and I were up in, we were going to a housewarming party, and we were up in Roseville, and there's the Roseville Shopping Center, which is just
Condensed version.
huge.
Condensed version.
So we went to Nordstrom's, and there was a nice lady there, and she said, yes, I can get you one. It was actually different, a little bit different than this.
But the one they
Same
had at the
manufacturer.
store was too big, so we
Oh.
ordered the one that was smaller.
Smaller. And so that did come, but that was also
Too
too
big.
big. So then
We took it back.
we took it, well, there was some, anyway, so we finally took it back, and they couldn't order a smaller size. So I said, well, let's go to the manufacturer.
So we ordered online.
So we ordered online from the manufacturer, and they sent one which fit me. It's the same bracelet. However, the first time I put it on, I looked at my car and I went down like this to shift the gear, and the thing came off because the clasp wouldn't clasp shut. So I called them, and it was it was a birthday present, and I called them, and they said, oh gosh, the time is expired for returning. I said, well, but wait, this was a Christmas present, even though it was ordered before Christmas.
Mhm.
And so she looked at that and she says, we can do it. And so they sent me the return thing, and so I sent it back to them. But we didn't hear anything for, gosh, a month and a half. And then
It finally came.
And then it was there when we got home.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he
It's
manifested it,
perfectly-
and it works.
The
And
imperfect marriage became a perfect,
Perfect
marriage.
marriage.
it did.
Ultimately, but
It
you had
did.
to work on it.
We had to work on that one a little bit. But
But
Which is
I'm,
all's
true.
well that ends well.
I'm curious to know, in the context of why we're here, what is the significance of this leather bracelet?
I just always
I just
wanted a
wanted
really
it.
Just wanted it. It's
Just-
just a piece of jewelry.
piece of
Yeah,
jewelry.
yeah, that
I've
he
always
likes.
wanted a
I
nice-
didn't know if it had something to do with maleness, leather.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But mine was, and there's no big or small in the mind that createth all, was to work on weather because I knew we'd be traveling, and I actually did this when we went a couple weeks ago to Pismo. I knew that we were in the winter El Nino and storms and coming and going and stuff, and we drove all the way to Pismo Beach and spent the weekend and came all the way back. It rained, but it only rained at night. So
Nice.
it was beautiful, a little cooler than we had experienced in the past couple of years, but it was fine. And then this past weekend we drove down. My father had
Well, we
taken,
went to Disneyland.
we went to Disneyland on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday we spent with my dad. Thursday night, Friday and Saturday. He'd taken a fall, and so I was going with him to the doctors to see his bandages and all that. And so I just knew that the weather was going to be fine because going over the grapevine can be an issue sometimes. It can get close. Didn't have a spot of rain until we got home last night, and then it rained last night and this morning. So it's like, this is good. I can handle this. So yeah, I'm pretty good at manifesting good weather,
Yeah.
which is
I am too.
yeah, it's pretty awesome, especially for traveling. So that's nice.
It's good to know.
Yeah, and I'm working on something with inner guidance, and it has to do with the center. It has to do with growing the church and being guided in the ways to do that. So that is an ongoing process for me. So my Siri principle is an ongoing thing. But we'll know how things are working, especially as we get into our
And
goals.
was you sure again with the meaning of abracadabra? 'Cause
Oh gosh, I have that on
something
last.
about I create with my words.
Yes, abracadabra actually means, as I speak, I create.
They say it's an actual mantra that originated in India,
Yes, yeah, it's
and it will move you around.
exactly. Abracadabra is it's not just a
It's an
magical
actual
thing.
mantra.
It's an actual mantra.
For
Yeah,
creating.
A rabbit.
yeah. So, that abracadabra is I create as I speak,
I
or
create as I speak.
as I speak. Yeah.
And look at what everybody's
have to write that
normally
down.
speaking.
Yes.
Yikes.
Well, that's where it's, yeah.
Works both ways.
Yeah. So these experiments have been really fun. They've really been a lot of fun, and they've been wonderful. And there's so many more if you haven't done them, or if you have done them in the book. We've had a lot of fun. And of course, she continues on with E cubed, and I think she's got another one that's coming out or has come up. But anyway, I encourage everyone to continue this, because as we do this, as we practice and see how powerful our minds are, we go to that instead of where everyone else goes in creating the negative. It's like, no, we know the truth. So it's important that we keep proving this to ourselves, because we tend to go back into what's common, what's comfortable, what everybody else is doing. It's like so easy to just get on that train. And so, we stop ourselves and go, no, that's not the train for me. I know the truth, and I'm cancel. I'm not doing that. And I just think it's fun to do them from time to time and just repeat them. And we do that here with our treatments and with our affirmations and all of that. So it's fun. But today we're going to see with fresh eyes and bring a new perspective by marrying all we have done so far this month. By marrying the deep, heartfelt realization of this one presence and one power of life that is our life, with the use of God's law to create a life of magnificence, beauty, and inspiration. So there is your perfect marriage. Love and law. That is your perfect marriage. So I want to begin with 2 quotations from sacred writings. In a nutshell, they give us the formula for this marriage. The first is from the Upanishads, and those are sacred texts that are from Hinduism, in Hinduism, and they were written about 800 BC. So this says, one owns thought is one owns world. What a person thinks is what he becomes. That is the eternal mystery. That's the law part. If the mind dwells with the Supreme Self, that's the one presence and one power of life part, one enjoys undying happiness. 800 years before Christ. The second is from the Judeo-Christian Bible, and it's possible that you are more familiar with this one. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added unto you. If the mind dwells with the Supreme Self, which is God, one enjoys undying happiness. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things will be added unto you. They're saying the same thing. The truth is the truth is the truth. Focus on God, the one presence, the one power. They're saying both the same thing. The Apostle Paul brought this idea into practical application when he wrote to the people of Corinth and said, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honorable, whatsoever things are just and pure and lovely and of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. Wow. Keep your mind on the positive, on the light. We're instructed to focus our minds on God. Focus our minds on the good, the true, the pure, and the lovely. And as we're showing up in this world of form, this world of physical composition with material expression and experiences, we focus on what we wish to experience. We focus on that which we wish to experience. I say one more time, we focus on that which we wish to experience. How many of us have a difficult time staying in that realm of just focusing on what it is we want to experience? Because when we do that, the law is activated to produce the results we desire. That's what happens when we focus on that which we wish to experience. So that's what our experiments have really been about this month. For example, there was a 92-year-old man who went to the doctors to get a physical. The man didn't look too good. He was thin and pale and fragile, and his hands kind of shook. And the doctor didn't like what he saw, and he gave the old gentleman some solid words of medical advice. A few months later, the doctor ran into the man walking down the street, and he was a changed man. He had gained weight, his color had come back into his cheeks, he looked strong, and he no longer shook. And to top it off, he had a gorgeous young lady on his arm. The doctor stopped to marvel at this improvement, and he said, I can't believe it, you look terrific. "What happened to you?" The man replied, "What do you mean, what happened to me? I'm just doing what you said to do. Get a hot mama and be cheerful." The doctor said, "You old fool, I didn't say get a hot mama and be cheerful. I said you've got a heart murmur. Be careful." Perhaps his hearing wasn't so good, but that was a blessing in this case. So William Hornaday, which Rich and I actually used to listen to back when we lived in Whittier, we would listen to Richelieu and Hornaday. They would each have 15 minutes from 7 to 7:30. It was pretty darn an awesome way to start your day.
Absolutely.
And William Hornaday was a friend of Ernest Holmes in the early years of religious science. And he wrote a book, and it's called Aladdin's Lamp, and he wrote, "Thoughts we think, believe, and speak are seeds that will produce results. A carrot seed must produce a carrot. Any idea, if fertilized with belief and followed by action, will produce fruit of its kind. Therefore, if you don't want something, don't think about it." I like that. Kind of a double negative there, but if you don't want something, don't think about it. How many of us do that? We focus. I mean, it seems to be human nature, up until now, because we can change this, to focus on what's wrong. We focus on what we don't want. A lot of the time, we're worrying. We're just like, oh gosh, and we're afraid. We let our fear come in. We're afraid it will happen. When we think about it, it's pretty ridiculous, but it's what we do. Think about this. Open a box of chocolate candy. Everybody like chocolate candy? Yeah, okay. Or sweets don't do it. How about standing in front of the chip aisle at the grocery store, okay? Do you fret and fuss and whine and wring your hands over what it is you don't want when you're looking at that box of chocolates or all those different chips? Do you spend 1 ounce of energy focusing on how awful it would be if you put a piece of candy that you don't want into your mouth? Or if you bit down on a vinegar potato chip? I'm not crazy about the vinegar potato chips. It sounds pretty silly, doesn't it? That we don't, we're not focusing on what it is we don't want. We're really quite clear how to show up for a piece of chocolate or a bag of chips. We're really clear on that. We know what it is we like. We go for it. And we pick it and we enjoy it. We consider all of the options that are within our zone of desire, and then we make our selection. It's really as simple as that. No rallying against the ones we don't like, no fear, no what ifs, none of that nonsense. We simply select and enjoy. And while I know it's a simplistic view, the same principle applies to the bigger areas of our life. When we stand at the chocolate box or the chip aisle of life, let us refuse to get caught up in all of the things in the box or on the shelf that we don't want. For example, when thoughts of lack and limitation start to run through your mind, affirm abundance. I am the abundance of God bursting forth in my life right now. God is my unlimited source and my infinite supply. Let's say those together. I am the abundance of God bursting forth in my life right now. And God is my unlimited source and my infinite supply.
And my unlimited supply.
So when thoughts of
Can we go through those again?
Yeah, let's do those again. I'll do it slower. I am the abundance of God
I am the abundance of God
bursting forth in my life right now.
Bursting forth in my life right now.
God is my unlimited source
God is my unlimited source
and my infinite supply.
and my infinite supply.
All right. So when thoughts of disease and illness start to run through your mind, affirm
This is not me.
affirm health and perfect being. I am vibrant,
I am vibrant,
radiant,
Radiant,
dynamic health.
dynamic health.
God is my perfect health.
God is my perfect health.
Let's say it again. I am vibrant, radiant, dynamic health.
I am vibrant, radiant, dynamic health.
God is my perfect health.
God is my perfect health.
When thoughts of unworthiness start to crop up, replace them with words affirming your divine nature. I am the givingness of God,
I am the givingness of God,
expressing as myself.
expressing as myself.
I am a process through whom God enriches the universe.
I am a process through which God enriches the universe.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
I'm
I'm
a
a
process
process.
in which God enriches
He enriches the universe.
It has your name in it. That's
Ooh, yes.
enriching.
Let us heed these extremely important words that Holmes writes in this thing called you. It is important that you maintain a strict censorship over your thinking. Just as you watch your garden, that foreign seeds shall not fall into it, producing a growth of undesirable plants. Excuse me. So you must refuse entrance to any thoughts you do not wish to see manifested in your life. Guard well this garden of your mind. It is God's garden of your soul. It is your Garden of Eden, wherein may grow your fondest desires and hopes, blossoming into fulfillment.
Water.
Oh, water, sure.
Thank you. Or if you permit, the weeds of destruction, fear, and doubt will choke out the beauty of hope until despair alone remains. Watch carefully, then, this garden of your soul. Plant there only seeds of happiness, of joy, of peace, and of goodwill. It may be necessary to cultivate your garden, thank you, to uproot the weeds and straighten out the rows, planting new seeds, new ideas, broader visions, and deeper realizations of life. New aspirations must be bedded there, fertilized with the fervor of hope, the conviction of faith, the beauty of wholeness, and the quietness of peace. Watch your garden carefully, guard it patiently, waiting for a new harvest, for you shall reap what you have sown. Yes, I think it's also important to remember that when you pull out a weed, when you take something out that is negative and release it, put something back in
Right.
that is positive to fill in that space so that other weeds don't come on in. So I want to share with you a most amazing story which appeared in the Reader's Digest in 1993. And I have shared it before, but I'm pretty sure you may not have heard of it because it's been a while since I've shared it. And it's written in the first person, and it's written in such an engaging way. This may be a story you've heard, though, before. So I'm going to share it exactly as it was written, and it goes like this. Several times my daughter had telephoned to say, "Mother, you must come to see the daffodils before they are over." I wanted to go, but it was a 2-hour drive from Laguna to Lake Arrowhead. Going and coming took most of the day, and honestly, I didn't have a free day until the following week. "I will come next Tuesday," I promised, a little reluctantly on her third call. Tuesday arrived cold and rainy. Still, I promised, so I drove the length of Route 91 to the I-215 and finally onto Route 18 and began to drive up the mountain highway. The tops of the mountain were sheathed in clouds, and I'd only gone a few miles when the road was completely covered in a wet gray blanket of fog. I slowed to a crawl, my heart pounding. The road becomes narrow and winding toward the top of the mountain. Have you ever been on that road? I've been on that road.
Absolutely.
I have definitely been on that road. The road, as I executed the hazardous turns at a snail's pace, I was praying to reach the turnoff at Blue Jay that would signify I had arrived. When I finally walked into Carolyn's house and hugged and greeted my grandchildren, I said, "Forget the daffodils, Carolyn. That road is invisible in the fog and the clouds, and there's nothing in the world except you and these darling children that I want to see bad enough to drive another inch." My daughter smiled calmly. "We drive in this all the time, Mother." "Well, you won't get me back on that road until it clears, and then I'm heading for home," I assured her. "I was hoping you'd take me over to the garage to pick up my car. The mechanic just called, and they finished repairing my engine," she answered. "How far will we have to drive?" I asked cautiously. "Just a few blocks," Carolyn said cheerfully. So we buckled up the children and went out to my car. "I'll drive," Carolyn offered. "I'm used to this." We got into the car, and she began driving. In a few minutes, I was aware that we were back on the Rim of the World road, heading over the top of the mountain. "Where are we going?" I exclaimed, distressed to be back on the mountain road in the fog. "This isn't the way to the garage." "We're going to the garage the long way," Carolyn smiled. "By way of the daffodils." "Carolyn," I said sternly, trying to sound as if I was the mother and still in charge of the situation, "please turn around. There's nothing in the world I want to see enough to drive on this road in this weather." "It's all right, Mother," she replied with a knowing grin. "I know what I'm doing. I promise you will never forgive yourself if you miss this experience." And so my sweet, darling daughter, who had never given me a minute of difficulty in her whole life, was suddenly in charge, and she was kidnapping me. I couldn't believe it. Like it or not, I was on my way to see some ridiculous daffodils, driving through the thick gray silence of the mist-wrapped mountaintop, what I thought was risk to life and limb. I muttered all the way about how, and about after 20 minutes, we turned onto a small gravel road that branched out into an oak-filled hollow on the side of the mountain. The fog had lifted a little, but the sky was low and gray and heavy with clouds. We parked in a small parking lot adjoining a little stone church. On the far side of the church, I saw a pine needle-covered path with towering evergreens and manzanita bushes, and an inconspicuous handwritten sign that said Daffodil Garden. We each took a child's hand, and I followed Carolyn down the path as it wound through the trees. Live oaks, mountain laurel, shrubs, and bushes clustered in the folds of the forest, and in the gray, drizzling air, the green foliage looked dark and monochromatic. I shivered. And then we turned at the corner of the path, and I looked up and gasped.
Oh.
Before me lay the most glorious sight, unexpectedly, completely splendid. It looked as if someone had taken a great vat of gold and poured it over the mountain peak and slopes where it had run into every crevice and over every rise. Even in the mist-filled air, the mountainside was radiant, clothed in massive drifts of waterfalls of daffodils. The flowers were planted in majestic swirling patterns, great rhythms, and swaths of deep orange, white, yellow, salmon, pink, saffron, and butter yellow. In the center was this incredible, dazzling display of gold, a great cascade of purple hyacinth flowers. Let's see. Let me get down to, you see the cascade of hyacinth flowers that flowed like a waterfall of blossoms, and it framed its own rock-lined basins weaving through the brilliant daffodils. As though this were not magnificent enough, Mother Nature added her own grace note. Above the daffodils, a bevy of western bluebirds flitted and darted, flashing their brilliance. These charming little birds were the color of sapphires, with breasts of magenta red. They danced in the air. Their colors were truly like jewels above the glowing daffodils. The effect was spectacular. It did not matter that the sun was not shining. The brilliance of the daffodils was like the glow of the brightest sunlit day. Words, wonderful as they are, simply cannot describe the incredible beauty of that flower-bedecked mountaintop. But who has done this? I asked, almost speechless with wonder. And how, and why, and when? We walked up to the house. I think there's one with a house. There we go. We walked up to the house, my mind buzzing with questions. On the patio, we saw a poster. Answers to the questions I know you are asking was the headline. The first answer was a simple one, 50,000 bulbs. The second one was, one at a time, by one woman, 2 hands, 2 feet, and very little brain. The third answer was, began in 1958.
Oh.
There it was, the daffodil principle. For me, that moment was a life-changing experience. I thought of this woman who I had never met, who for more than 35 years before, remember this was in 1993, had begun one bulb at a time to bring her vision of beauty and joy to an obscure mountaintop. One bulb at a time. There was no other way to do it. One bulb at a time. No shortcuts, simply loving the slow process of planting. Loving the work as it unfolded, loving the achievement that grew so slowly and that bloomed for only 3 weeks of each year.
Oh.
Still, seriously, we have daffodils in front of our house, and they're just starting to come up.
Yeah.
Very short term.
One is starting to bloom.
Still, just planting one bulb at a time, year after year, she had changed the world. This unknown woman had forever changed the world in which she had lived. She'd created something of ineffable magnificence, beauty, and inspiration. So I ask you, how do you marry the ideas of one power and one presence that is your life with the use of God's perfect law to create a life of ineffable magnificence, beauty, and inspiration? One thought at a time. That's how we do it. One thought at a time. One thought focused on truth. We can change the lives just as one daffodil at a time changed that mountainside. And so it is.